Okay, so good day everyone. Um, I'll be discussing about basics of C++ for you to better understand logical control structures later on. But first, I would like to discuss the structure of a program, um, variable types, literals, constant, comments, all of those. I want to discuss those first before we go deeper into programming. But before that one, I need to introduce first the application that you will need during this course. There are so many applications that you can use, but actually I'm using two applications for programming. I have here the DevC++, which is this one, and I also have the Visual Studio. So for C++ programming, you can use DevC++, and you can also use this one. So for those without computer and using mobile phones, you can use the online compiler, which is the cpp.sh, this one. You can use this one for as an online compiler. So I will demonstrate this one, or the other one, which is I think I have it here. Okay, this one. So the tutorialspoint.com, then compile cpponline.php. So you have two online compiler. I will post this one, or this link is posted in the description of the video. So I will first discuss DevC++. So DevC++ is a simple application. It's an offline application in which you can install in your computer. So it's just basic. You can just create. You just click file, then new. It's either source file or project. If we say project, it's like creating a folder, and your code or source code will be put into that project. So if you have different functionalities later on, you can create project. So this project. So you use empty project. So click empty project and then the name of the project. So that is, let's say, programming basic. So then click OK. So in here, so programming basic is the file name. So inside the project, there is a source file entitled untitled 4. So if it's new for you, that should be untitled 1. So if you save it, Control S, then you can rename that file. Let's say my first program. Okay. So this one. You already created a source file which is a .cpp. And then you can create a simple program. Let's say, for example, this one. I'll just create this one, a simple program, and I will explain this one on how to create this one later on. I'll just create this one and explain it later on. I'm just explaining the functionality of the application I'm using. So let's say, uh, see, my first program. Okay, okay, so if you want to run your program, you can press F11 or directly go to execute tab, click execute tab, then compile and run. So the shortcut for that one is F11. So you just need to wait for this one. It's compiling the program, and then after that one, if your code is correct, then it will output, or it will give an output. So the program created is just to output the word my first program. So that is how you use a DevC++. For newbie, or for new in programming and applications like this one, I recommend DevC++ for you. Anyway, for me, I am using um, Visual Studio. So the same, you just need to click File, then New. It's either you create a project or a file, the same. So that is how you use Visual Studio. So let's say create a project. Let's name the project as sample project, or programming basic. So programming basic. Okay, so the name of the project is programming basic. So it should be an empty C++ or empty project, a C++ empty project. Then click next. Then a project name, programming basic. Then create new solution. Sorry. In here, uh, if you search here, pag wala po ito, pag wala po tong empty project na yan, so i-search nyo po ang C++. Then makikita nyo po dito, ang dami pong magpapakita dyan. Merong console app, Windows Desktop Wizard, and so on. Then we have an empty project here. Click that one, then next. And then the name of the project is Programming Basic. So you can change the location of the project, and then click Create. So it will take time for the project to be created. Okay, so upon creating a project, your window should look like this one. So there should be a Solution Explorer. If you cannot see the Solution Explorer, then go to View, then find Solution Explorer in here, or it's here. View, uh, is that View? Okay, Toolbars. Okay, so go to View, then we have here the Solution Explorer. If and only if the Solution Explorer is not in your window. So pag wala po kayo nakikitang Solution Explorer on your window, just go to View, then click Solution Explorer. Then this window pane will pop up. On the source file, right-click the source file, and then add new item. So it should be under Visual C++. So it should be a C++ file, then the name of your file. So my first program. So that's it. So we can add this one. So just add. Then the editing pane will pop up. Okay. So this is where you create your code. As I told you a while ago, if you don't have your computers, you can use the online editor, which is the C plus cpp.sh or the tutorialspoint.com compile cpp online.php. I will post these two link on the description of the video. Okay, so let's start. So let's start with the basic of a program. So the very basic of the program is the structure of the program. So when we say structure of the program, it deals about the different parts of a running program. So I'll just create a single code and then I'll explain it line by line. So we have hashtag include, we have iostream, then using namespace std, then int name, then we also have cout my first program. Okay. So this is a simple structure of a program. As you can see, line 1 is considered as a comment. When you say comment, these are notes in your program. Basically, it's a documentation in your program or part of your program. But it does not have any effect on your program. So there are two ways on how you can declare a program. Either by using two forward slash or by using the symbol forward slash, then asterisk forward slash. At the middle of those symbols, then you can put your comment. So these are two ways on how you can declare a comment. So on line 3, we have here considered as a library or a directive. So a directive contains or supports the different functions that you will use in your program. So it begins with a hash sign followed by the keyword include, then we have the name of directive. So they are considered as special lines that is interpreted before compiling the program. So what does a directive mean? When we say directive, it's a library. Just an analogy of a directive. So in a library, you can find so many books. So in a directive, you can find so many functions. Then using namespace std. Okay. So the first one is a directive. Line 3 is a directive. Then we have using namespace std. What does this mean? So std stands for standard, meaning we are using a namespace name std or standard to support the different functions under the IO stream, because cout or basic output is supported by IOStream under the namespace std. Then line 5 is a blank space or considered as white spaces. It has no effect on your program. Then we have the int main. So this line or line 6 indicates the declaration of a function. Essentially, the main function is called the main function is called when you are to execute or compile your program. So, what is a function? A function is essentially a groups of different statements. So, there are two ways on how you can declare a main function. Either by using int or by using void. So, you can also use void then main. So, either of the two, you can use kahit ano po dito sa dalawa ay pwedeng void or pwedeng int ang gamitin. So, the syntax of that one is the type, then we have the name. Okay, then followed by two parentheses. Then in line 7 and line 9, these are curly braces. So, line 7 indicates the opening of the main function and line 9 indicates the closing of the main function. Then the last part, we have here a statement. So, a statement composed basically, or this statement composed basically of three parts. So, number one, we have the cout or the standard output. So, cout. Then, followed by two less than sign. And then the third one is the sentence inside the quotation. So, those are the structure of a program. That is basically the structure of a program. Okay. So, this is just a basic example or a basic structure of a program. But take note, programming is not just simply outputting or printing simple text on the screen. So, for you to create a useful program, para makagawa po kayo ng isang magandang program, simple lang po ang kailangan po natin. We need variables. What are variables? Variables are used to store data. Let's say, imagine if I told you to remember a digit or a number, let's say 5. So, if I ask you to remember all the even numbers, including the prime numbers, including the series of what series out there, so imagine if you can remember all those one. But in a program, we can take the program to remember all those numbers and series by using variables. So, example of a variable, let's say A is equal to 5 or your age is equal to 19. So, A and age are variables. These are used to store values. But basically, if we are to store values, we have the different types. But before I'll discuss the different types, let's discuss first what is an identifier. So take note of identifier. So identifier are sequence of characters or numbers and undersign. So including digits. So a valid identifier is composed of a sequence of letters, one or more letters, numbers, and underscore. So it cannot have, or an invalid identifier is composed of symbols, spaces. Those are invalid identifiers. What are identifier? Basically, these are the name of variables. Identifier is considered as the name of variables. So take note that another one is another thought or idea in identifier is that you cannot use keywords or C++ keyword as an identifier. It will create an error on your program later on. So an identifier is a sequence of characters or letters, I should say. Sequence of letters and numbers including underscore. So those are valid identifiers. So sequence of letters and numbers including underscore. So take note. Identifier are used to name variables. But in C++, naming variables is case sensitive. Meaning, variable or var, small letter bar, is not the same as capital letter bar. Or small letter h is not the same as age, it's not the same as age, or it's not the same as age. So these are different variables. So it's case sensitive. Take note of that one. So let's first discuss the fundamental data types. I'll just give you the basic data types, uh, basic data types that we will use all throughout the program. So basic data types includes, number one, we have char or car. Then we also have, number two, we have int. Then number three, boolean or bool. Number four, we have floating point. And then number five, we have string. So basically, we will use these different basic data types. So what is a char or a car? Char is a single character. It is single character. It's just a single character. While int or integer is used for whole numbers. Whole numbers. While bool is used for Boolean expressions or expressions. So Boolean composed of only two values, that's either false or true. Then we have floating point. There are two declarations of floating point. So we can use, these are just the basic. So we can use double and float as declaration. Then we have string. So string is series of letters or characters. So take note that string is supported by a library. You cannot use string without the string library. So you need to include hashtag include, then we have string. So this library is used to support string literals. So these are just the basic data types. There are still more data types, but I'll just discuss this one for your basic knowledge. So let's go to the declaration of the variables. Take note that declaration of variables is different from initialization. When we say declaration of a variable, you need to declare the data type of a variable. As I told you, variable are used to store data. Take note. And the names of those variable is considered as identifier. Okay? So if you are to declare a variable, so you need to give the data type of the variable. So let's say int age. So we are saying that age is an integer type, meaning variable age, int age, int age. Take note, every line statement must end. Take note must end with a semicolon. So let's take this one into consideration. So we have the type, then the variable name. So meaning the syntax of that one is type, then we have variable name. Okay? Then semicolon. So type, then variable name. Or it's considered as identifier. Type then the identifier or variable name. So let's take this one. So variable age can only contain whole numbers. It can only store whole numbers. Then we also have float pi. Then double pi. Sir, what's the difference between float and double? It's only the precision. Let's say, for example, float can contain 3.14 while double can contain 3.1416. That's just a comparison. So the only difference between this one is precision. Then we also have Boolean. Boolean exp or expression. Then we also have char. Char x or char initial. So variable initial can only contain a single character. Okay? Variable exp can contain either true or false. Then we also have string name. So name can contain a series of letters or characters. Okay, so let's use them in a program. Okay, so age. So let's say for let's study integer first. So I'll give you an example of a program using integer. So let's say int x and y. Int x and y. So these two variables is separated by a comma. So we have int x and y, then we have int sum. Okay? So let's say x equals 5, then y equals 7. So sum is equal to x plus y. Then we need to output or see out sum. Okay? So see out sum. If you are using variable, take note if you are to output the value of the variable, then it must not be enclosed by a quotation. So see the difference between these two statements. So sum, this one, line 14 will output the value of sum, while line 15 will output the word sum. Okay, let's try and run. So it should have an output of 12. Okay, so here it is. As you can see, the first variable, which is sum, not enclosed by a quotation, outputted the value stored by sum, while the second statement, line 15, outputted the word sum. Okay? So another one is, as you can see, a statement will output a continuous line unless they are separated by, number one, we have by using end line, ENDL. So ENDL, or we can use the backslash n. We can also use the backslash n for new line. This one, ENDL means end line, while backslash n means new line. Okay, so let's try and run this one. Okay, so we have this one. As you can see, in the previous example, 12 and sum is in a single line. When we use ENDL, then sum goes to the second line. Okay. So this is just a sample of variables. Then we also have the so-called initialization of variables. So when we say initialization of variables, you are just giving an initial value to the variable. So we have type. The syntax of that one is type. Then we have identifier. Then we have equals initial value. So example. So a while ago, we have int x equals 0. So the initial value of x is 0. We also have the so-called constructor initialization. So constructor initialization means have a syntax as type, then identifier, then we have open and close parentheses. Inside that one is initial value. So an example is int x, then we have value 0. Take note, every line statement must end with a semicolon. Okay? We also have, this one is C-like initialization. These are types of initialization. C-like initialization or common initialization. Common initialization. This is constructor initialization. Then the last one, we have the uniform initialization. It has a syntax of type. Then we have identifier. Then we have open and close braces. Then we have initial value. So Example, we have int x, then we have the initial value which is 0. Ang tawag po natin dito is uniform initialization. Okay? So, let's try this one in a program. So, we have, let's try different variables. So, int x equals 5, int y, then we have 3, then int, we'll use uniform initialization, we have 6. Okay. Then we'll output the different variables. So cout x, so endl, then we have y and endl, and then we have c. So gumamit lang po ako ng endl para po hindi po magkakadikit yung value ng xyz. So let's try and output that one. This is still recording. Yes. Okay. So we have the value 5, 3, and 6. So x is 5, y is 3, then z is 6. So those are the different variable initialization. Then we can also have initial value or strings. Giving initial value to strings. Pwede rin pong gumamit ng, pwedeng ganito rin po siya. So string name equals Pedro Kalupag. Okay. So we have Pedro Kalupag, then we need to output name. Okay. So name. Okay, so we have here Pedro Kalupag. Okay, so that one, the value of name is Pedro Kalupag, then we are outputting the value of name. And that's all for today. Thank you.